everyone. Welcome back to the Light and Life podcast, conversations on faith and life in downtown Colorado Springs. I'm your host, Liza, here again with Pastor Tim.
Hi, Liza.
Hey. And today we're talking about career and calling.
And who better? No, go ahead. Keep going.
Career and calling, faith in professional life.
Yes. Yes.
It's funny because I do have a mug right now. I don't know if the camera can get a little glimpse of that. Another sponsor, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Fake sponsorship. We don't actually have sponsors.
Sponsorships.
But the Godly Businesswoman magazine, but if you turn it around, it just says, I'm a godly businesswoman. And
Nice.
I like to think that.
Nice.
I like to think that I am.
I find that mugs always print stuff on the wrong side of the handle. Is that something that you've
I like to look.
experienced? You like to see what's on it.
And you don't? You like to...
The point of the mug is to show somebody else.
You think that's the point of the mug? I think the point of the mug is to, drink out of it or to hold things.
Look, I'm all about appearances and fake appearances and, the show of everything.
Right. Because that's what a church should do.
Because that's what, as a spiritual leader, that's the most
The false
important thing to
me. Guys, if you can't detect the sarcasm, it is there. I promise it's there.
I hope so. I'm laying it on pretty thick. But that's a big debate. I think people could really debate, because I've got multiple mugs. Even going back, I worked at the Black Dog in Martha's Vineyard. Have you ever heard of the Black
first
Dog?
of all, you have... I want to go through your resume.
A storied career.
Yeah, we got Olive Garden, the Black Dog. What else?
Peter Piper Pizza.
Yeah?
Jimmy John's Delivery.
You did not work for Jimmy John's.
When I met Abigail, I was wearing a Jimmy John's Delivery hat. Yep.
It just keeps getting better. It really does. That is so good. That's so good to know. That's so relatable.
Yeah.
It is.
I've tried it all. Best job of all is preaching for this church. I'm going to stick with. I'm locking that in.
You hear that, guys?
Yep, everybody.
Okay, so you're at the Black Dog. You have a mug.
Well, yeah, but it goes back to that, that logo. Do you know what I'm talking about? The Black Dog logo. People used to wear T-shirts.
Yeah, with the bandana on it.
The bandana on it.
Yeah.
It's a famous logo. In fact, my job there that summer was shipping stuff because there's people that were they didn't want to come to Martha's Vineyard, go to the gift store to get the shirt. They just wanted it shipped to them. And back then that was a big deal. This was a long time ago. It's before Amazon.
Yeah.
It's like people sending you a letter. It says, please send me a T-shirt. But mail it to this address. Ask Roger to pay for it when it arrives. The thing's on the wrong side. So the main thing of the thing is that the dog is showing, right? So you hold this mug and the dog's looking at you and you're like...
I want it to look at me. Because that's why mugs make me happy is I'm looking at what I enjoy. When I buy a mug that I think is nice, I want to see it.
I honestly think we have hit the next Enneagram. This is which side of the mug is because this is going to tell you everything about your faith and vocation, your calling,
how you process information.
How you process information. Yep. How you're effective through change.
You know what? I think if you hire new people to work on staff at church, that should be an interview
You should put 2 mugs in front of them.
How are you going to turn it?
How are you going to turn it?
Which way are you going to hold it?
Yep. And then as soon as they reach for the mug, you're like, thanks for coming in.
Wrong. You answered incorrectly.
Yep. Thanks for coming in.
Oh, man. Well, so today, diving into navigating career uncertainties.
Yes, exactly.
Kind of like the uncertainty of which way a mug should go.
Exactly. Yeah. Stressful, right? Yeah, we're headed towards graduation time. That I think if you're in college right now, you're thinking, hey, graduation's coming and everyone's coming around you. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? I know, you were a First Pres fellow, so you had that extra year. You said, well, I'm going to go off to Colorado Springs and be a First Pres fellow. But then the fellows right now,
turns into that again.
It's that again.
Round 2.
Maybe round 2, maybe more, sometimes maybe even more intense because now you've had all this training on, well, this is your personality type and this is how you go and make a difference for God in the world and stuff. And I think that helps our fellows, but sometimes I also think it's like, okay, now I've got another layer of pressure of I've got to make the right decision, do the right thing to make the highest impact after you graduate. It's stressful, right?
Yeah. Well, I think speaking from experience, being in that position after learning, all about myself and how, I lead in certain situations. Am I a more passive leader? Am I a more, spearheader kind of person? Am I someone who likes to collaborate? Yeah. Those kinds of things all factored into the job search, the job application process, and I think it made me overthink, because all of these things are extremely helpful tools to know what you want to do. But I think being so heavily equipped in a very positive way, me being an overthinker, had to find like the perfect thing that aligned with all of my leadership styles. How am I going to be an asset to an organization, and how are they going to be,
and makes a difference in the kingdom of God?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And how are they going to jive with me? Right? Like, how am I going to receive them? How are they going to receive me? And
so it was helpful.
It was helpful, yes, but I think also, I think it was most helpful in knowing that, you can be used in whatever field, because I think I was experiencing some level of guilt for not going into ministry after this newfound
especially
spiritual
since we were
enlightenment that I
begging
felt.
You to do a particular ministry job.
Yeah, right. So I think it was very helpful in knowing that I can still be someone who follows Jesus and leads people to Jesus and loves people like Jesus loved in any field that I'm in. It doesn't matter what I do. I can be used for his glory. So I think that was helpful. But what's really difficult is making a decision of what's next and feeling the pressure from everyone around you that they don't mean to put on you. It's just a question that naturally comes up in conversation when you meet.
Yeah, you're at this stage of life and people are curious about you, and it's like, hey,
they
what are you going to do?
What's next?
What's next? What are you going to do? What are you going to...
Yeah. Yep. You panic, tail between your legs.
I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think, so I remember a man in a church that I was part of in Charlottesville, Virginia, and he was, I don't know what his position, but it was like at the vice president type level of a big plant that was there with GE. Like, he wasn't like vice president of GE, but he was in charge of this entire segment of GE that was there in the Central Virginia. And I was like, how did you know that's what you, like, God wanted you to do? He's a very godly man, and like, how did you know this was your vocation? And he said, actually, I grew up in such and so town, and when I needed a job, there was one job available in town.
Whoa.
And it was screwing vacuum tubes in the back of GE appliances, television, something like that. Literally, like, screwing, like...
Yeah.
He took that job because it was the only job. And he did that well, and he loved people, and he became this senior management VP over 500, 600 people in this thing. But I was just so, at the time, I just thought, that is so dissimilar from my experience. And I think for every generation, for your generation and for the rising younger generation, like, it's totally different. Like, you have so many options. Like, the array of, I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do this. That pressure of selecting is now on your shoulders. Where for him, it was just like, I didn't.
That was my option.
There was a job.
Right.
And wouldn't that be, in some ways, so sweet?
Yes.
Yes. But of course we want the options, but there's a pressure to that, and you can kind of, get lost in the matrix of, I want to make the exact right decision, and then you just get stuck, don't you? Yeah. Sometimes.
Sometimes, yes. I think people mix up the word vocation and job.
Okay.
And they use them too interchangeably.
Okay.
And I think they're very different.
Say more about that.
Okay, when I was a hostess at a restaurant, right? That was my job.
That was your job.
And if you want to replace it with career, I am an account executive. That's my career. That's not my vocation.
Okay.
I think my vocation is to love people well, to make people feel. I know that it's a gift of mine, and I'm not saying it to brag. It's just I've done a lot of reflection and knowing what my gifts are, and one is hospitality, and one is almost disarming a really closed off person.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm able to do that, and I think that's my vocation is evident in my job because I work in sales and I'm a relationship builder.
Yeah.
And so my vocation is implemented in my current job, but that doesn't mean that my job is my vocation.
Yeah,
Am I making sense?
100%. I mean, I think that's a great way to think about it. Because job, even career, I think the way I probably would think about it is every job, the reason you're getting paid is because somebody doesn't want to do it. I mean, there's like if it was just something that everybody wanted to do, there would be no reason to pay you to do it. So there's always some level of like there are jobs out there that who wants to be the hostess at, where were you the hostess again?
There's a place called Aubrey's.
Aubrey's, and there is a commercial.
Not to be confused with Arby's. There is a commercial.
There is a commercial out there
on
the
gas
interwebs.
station pumps in Knoxville, Tennessee, and sometimes it still runs, and I get a text from my dad of a 16-year-old Liza. Yep.
Because I've seen that commercial, and it is awesome.
That was my launch into stardom.
Do you remember any lines from that?
Oh, I remember the whole thing. Would you like to hear it?
It's
it
30
seconds.
Minutes? Okay, 30 seconds. Yeah.
What's for dinner tonight? Aubrey's has got you covered. Visit Aubrey's.com or download our app, and by the time you're done pumping gas, we'll be started on your order. Just swing by and pick it up on your way home.
I will.
Aubrey's. Real comfort, real food, real good.
Wow.
So
I had a problem. Here's the solution.
Yeah, that's the
what's
solution.
For dinner?
And you know what,
Aubrey's.
guys? Unfortunately, you're not graced with Aubrey's the way that Knoxville, Tennessee is.
Yeah.
But that food's good if you ever go there.
Yeah.
So now we got Aubrey's, Chili's, Olive Garden.
The sponsorships are rolling in.
The Godly Businesswoman magazine.
Yep.
All the things.
All the things. But there's job because, I'm going to pay you to do this because I don't want to do it.
Right.
Like that's like at the baseline, there's that sort of thing of job. And that can grow into career. Like I've got a career where I do a job well, I do work well, and I'm paid for that. I'm remunerated for that. But it's not where I live. Like it's not my heart. It's not my life. It's not who I am really, in a sense, even though everyone will ask, what do you do to define who I am? There are people who would say, my career is that's just a way of paying the bills. That's just a way that I found to provide. And then, okay, so what do you love? What are you about? And that's someone who maybe their whole career sits over there in that provision category of I do work and get paid for it because I have the skills to do it. No one else can do it. And, that provides. And then, so what's your vocation? Oh, I'm at the Weber Student Center and I'm loving kids and I'm raising kids. I'm in youth ministry. I'm taking kids to camp and whatever. I'm on mission trips or I'm engaged in this and like that's really where my heart beats. But I think different people are looking for different overlaps of those two things. Mm-hmm. Like for me, I feel like. And this doesn't always happen, but I feel like by God's grace, I give thanks that most of my jobness overlaps with my sense of vocation. Mm-hmm. And that's part of sort of the decision-making that you make. Like, if I would like more of that overlap, that might mean, so I'm not going to go be a vice president at GE of management. I'm going to be a pastor
Mm-hmm.
and that might mean certain, well, you're going to get paid this instead of this, or you're going to have, these responsibilities. But you're making those decisions knowing I want more overlap
Mm-hmm.
of my main vocation and my career. Does that make sense? Is that something that you guys talked about? And
Yeah, I think it's how can you use the gifts that you have or yeah, like how are you naturally equipped to pursue your calling, which all of our calling at the end of the day, I believe, is to be a kingdom builder.
Okay. Yep.
And there's different ways to do that. And I think mine just so happens to be gathering people wherever they are, whoever they are, and having real connection. It comes easier to me than it might someone else. Where I'm not really, what I'm not really great at is providing answers to really hard questions, or I can be avoidant in certain situations, right? So it's like,
yeah. So there's character traits and
I put too much on my
traits
plate, and so I can't fulfill certain tasks to completion because I have a bajillion different things or a bajillion different relationships at once. It's like you choose your battles, but
because this starts to get really quickly into that area of how is my time and energy being spent.
Mm-hmm.
And if I haven't spent some time asking, what is my job, what is my career, but what is you used the word vocation, which is another word for calling. Vocation comes from vocare, the Latin vocare. So
that sounds like something that should be on Twilight, like the
vocare, and they come and attack the.
That's Voltari.
Illuminati or the. Okay.
Oh gosh, oh gosh, the bird.
Sure, I'm tracking. I'm with you, totally with you. You can tell how I'm all read up on the Twilight, warring Twilight factions. But okay, so calling. All right, so let's be obvious. Who's calling?
God.
God is calling. Yeah. So as Christians, as believers, we want to approach this knowing that God has a purpose for our life, that God has a calling for us, and we've dipped into this in our conversation already. But I think a really helpful way to approach that is the way that John Calvin did, which is he said you've got calling on two levels. Everybody has a calling. It's not just pastors, priests, missionaries that have a calling. It's not just ministry people that have a calling. Everybody has a calling. God has a purpose for your life, and that may be to be really effective in sales and to be changing lives for the kingdom in that area. Mm-hmm. But the way Calvin broke it down is he said, look, you've got a primary calling and a secondary calling, and he wanted to categorize those so you don't lose track. And your primary calling is, as you said, to be a kingdom builder. Your primary calling is to love God and love neighbor. Your primary calling is your calling to salvation in Jesus Christ, to be in a relationship with Jesus Christ, to be involved in his church, to be involved in what he's doing in the world, and wherever you are, to be about his kingdom. And the cool thing about that primary calling is that anybody who is a believer has that calling and can develop and live into it. Like, for example, I went out to visit Lyman Correctional Facility a few weeks ago.
Intense.
That's the first time I've been in prison for 20 years.
Okay, when you say in prison, it sounds like you're the imprisoned.
I know. I had a great time with this.
Okay.
Like, I kept telling people, can we go to lunch on Wednesday? I was like, well, I'll be in prison.
Okay. You just leave it at that.
Just leave it at that.
Yeah, spice up the day.
Yep.
Let them think what.
Yeah, I'd love to do that, but I'm going to prison on Wednesday. So.
Yeah.
But no, I had a great time out there, and they actually have a seminary in the prison, and that's why I went out there and I visited these guys. There's 24 guys at Lyman Correctional Facility who are taking seminary classes. That's
so cool.
And they are all lifers. So these people have made some serious mistakes, and they are not likely to leave the Colorado penal institution.
Wow.
But as they develop, as they become chaplains, the Department of Corrections is actually going to farm them out to different facilities so that they can practice ministry and be a chaplain as life sentence inmates. But my point is that you can, wherever you could be in prison. I mean, you can be, locked up, and you can be stuck somewhere. You can be, and still fulfill your primary calling. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Like, whatever's happening in your life, you can still answer God's call for your life to have meaning and purpose for His glory, reflecting the love of Jesus wherever you are, which is just amazing, right?
Right.
I mean, I think
it is. I do too.
But it's cool to
I
see.
don't know about you, but
I don't know about you, but no, I just think it's worth just kind of going, that's just so awesome that there is no such thing as a person who can't be used for God's glory when they give their life to Christ, no matter what situation they're in. And they might be life inmates in prison. Nevertheless, you can fulfill that primary calling. Wow. And then, but secondary calling is like particular work and activity God wants you to do. So that would be like going into, sales, or going into this career, going into becoming a lawyer, becoming a doctor, becoming a pastor, becoming, whatever it is but submitting that also to God and saying, Lord, help me to, how much overlap do I want between what really makes my heart beat and getting provision, job and vocation, or do I want to just do ministry over here and job over here? Different people have different makeups there. But submitting that all to God and saying, I want to be doing the thing that you want me doing, and trying to work that out,
Yeah.
How do you work that out?
I don't know. Your turn. Yeah. I wish, what we need to get? We need to get an Uno reverse card.
Yeah.
And just let me play it on you sometimes. I think that'd be fun.
Reverse back.
Yeah, let's do that.
Just reverse back. Yeah.
I mean,
well, it's something that we it's something that churches need to be better at. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Remember when we talked about young adults who wind up leaving the church?
Yes.
A big part of that was them saying, I think I'm called to be, or I think I'm moving toward a passion toward becoming a physicist or something. And then for some reason in the environment that they're in the church environment that they're in, they get the message, either spoken or unspoken, that, oh, if you go into hard sciences, you're not going to be a Christian, or that's not going to fit. God must have wanted something else for you. And so they wind up leaving the church. Or I want to go into filmmaking. Oh, if you really want to be a filmmaker, you either need to make Christian films or
get out. Yeah.
Or get out. Go be with the heathen. And so the church needs to do so much better of a job of saying, you've got a primary calling and a secondary calling. And if you're being called to be a physicist, to be a great filmmaker, to be a pilot of an airplane, to be, we want to help you as your Christian community to understand how to do that in a God-glorifying way. Mm-hmm. Because there's no place that you can't, unless you're literally running a crime syndicate, or
yeah.
you own a chain of, well, never mind. But, most vocations, you do this in a God-honoring way. You can,
right.
Yeah.
Right. I think when you say most churches do this or could do a better job of that, I think something that was the most impactful to me was my seminary professor during the fellows program saying, some of you may go on to be pastors or missionaries or, these big jobs that sounded like movers and shakers.
Yeah.
And so I started slumping down because I knew,
it's not happening.
That ain't it for me.
Yep.
And he paused and he said, but I kind of hope that you don't.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that was so awesome, because he was just saying, and that this is not to talk negatively of ministry. I mean, you're my pastor.
Right.
I'm saying I thought it was so empowering, I should say, that we need these lights in all different areas.
Yeah, right.
We need lights in school systems. We need people to be lights in government, in politics. We need people to be a light in technology.
Go out and do it well, and do it for Jesus. Figure out what does that look like?
Right, and have a posture of someone who is a follower of Jesus. Do your job and do it well and with the gifts that you've been given. And if your gifts don't perfectly align with your job, so be it. Still give what you can, and maybe try to find one with more overlap if that's what you feel.
Yeah.
Needs
or
to
like
happen.
one of my best buddies. I mean, he works really hard, and then he works 45, 50 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not life-giving work for him, and so the rest of his time he's devoted to church and ministry.
That's cool.
And he loves that separation. And he's still a Christian man in his engineering job.
Sure.
And has a man of integrity and stuff. But so I actually brought 4. Can I give 4 practicals here at the end? So you're going into this process. You're thinking, I want to do it. I want to do it well. I want to try to hear from God. Here are 4 things that you could do. The first is, remember that God does care, and he does have a purpose for your life. And that's not to say, ooh, I missed God's purpose, like to worry and fret, like I missed God's best or I missed God's purpose. God is a lot bigger than that, and he weaves our mistakes into the fabric of our life and our story. So I hate when people get really, they hear, oh, God has a plan for my life, and they think, oh, I missed it, so now what,
I messed up his plan.
Fret and worry. Like I messed up his plan, right? No, but just to remember that this is worth talking to God about. God is invested in what you do and how you use your time. And so seek Jesus for his desire for you. That's number 1. Number 2 is a ripoff from Rick Warren's Purpose-Driven Life. And he says, look at your shape, SHAPE, which is spiritual gifts, heart, like what makes your heart beat. Spiritual gifts is like special qualities that you have in the Christian body. There's spiritual gifts inventories and things, if people haven't heard of that. But spiritual gifts, how God has gifted you to bless the body of Christ. Your heart, what makes your heart beat? Like what makes you cry when you think about this problem in the world? What makes you get active, Abilities, what are you good at? What are you bad at? You don't always have to do the thing you're bad at. You may have abilities because that's the thing you ought to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Your personality, if you have a really hard time being upbeat and jovial, you're probably not going to be a good kindergarten teacher, And
Right.
like take a look at your personality. God made you that way for a reason. Experience is the last one. So shape. Let your life tell a little bit of a story. God is writing our story. So read your story by looking on your past experiences when you're making that next decision. So that's number 1, remember God cares. Number 2, look at your shape. Number 3 is take time to ask what impact your actions are having on the world. And this is pretty heavy, but my friend Steve Garber has devoted his whole life. He runs something called the Washington Institute on Vocation in Washington, D.C., and he's devoted his life and his writing to vocation. And the most chilling thing is when he's giving a lecture and he starts to talk about the people who are in the machinery of the Holocaust. Like, not like the generals, the soldiers, the people running the gas chambers, but like the ladies who were doing the secretarial processing work and like stamping the sheet and checking off the name. And to hear them when they were interviewed afterward and just saying, I was just doing my job. Like I just had a job and I was just doing my job. But they were processing the murder of millions of Jews, right? So, and that's horrible. But in any place where you're working, to know that you're implicated in the larger outcomes, that you're implicated, you're part of it. And it's worth asking that question, do I want to be a part of what this is doing in the world? So remember, God does care. Look at your shape. Take time to ask, do I want to be a part of what this is doing in the world? And then the fourth one is pursue this idea in community. Like, don't just go it alone and go up on a mountaintop and, ask people.
Oh, if I didn't ask people their thoughts or get guidance, I'm so impulsive. I'd self-sabotage for sure.
Okay.
1,000%.
So it's easy.
I know exactly what you mean.
So you take that advice, you take advice, and it changes the direction you're headed?
1,000%.
That's
awesome.
Awesome.
I might not always agree with advice, and I might not always follow it, but it'll definitely make me pause and really think on it. So a lot of times I'm easily influenced by people around
those
me.
outside. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But to take advice is just so important, and it's not always easy for everybody. And so I'm going to leave us with this verse, Ephesians 4:1-2. As a prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. I think just going to God, looking at your shape, taking time to measure the impact, and pursuing it in community, and we'll make mistakes. It's okay. Mm-hmm. You can't make the perfect decision every time right out of the gate. Right. And every step forward you take trying to answer Jesus' call in your life is going to reveal something more, and he's going to weave that into the tapestry of your story and your career and your calling and your faith and your profession. And he's going to shape all that in a way that brings him glory, and ultimately that's going to be your greatest joy at the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Tim. And thanks for listening, everyone. If you're enjoying these conversations on faith and life, please leave us a review so that more people can find us. And we'd love for you guys to join in on the conversation. So if there's a certain topic or question that you have, please email us at podcasts@firstprescos.org. And of course, if you're watching the video version on YouTube, leave a comment below, and we'll look forward to seeing you in our next episode when we discuss building trust in a distrustful age. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.